We have got so many folks involved in this production, and we want to chat with as many of them as possible. And we see that our next guests in this segment are associated with the wardrobe department, and we're going to have you hold up this dress. I don't know whether it fits you or not, but we'll talk about it as one
yes.
of the beautiful costumes.
And I'm glad we're going to do that, because I don't know that the average theater goer really has a concept of how many people are involved behind the scenes to make a production happen. You see the performers, you hear the band, the orchestra, if it's a musical, but you don't have any concept of what is going on behind the scenes. And tonight we can open some doors so that our viewers will realize how much work goes on in a production that the audience never sees.
And that's exactly what we're all about in our wardrobe department here. We are meeting Kathryn Musselman, who hopes that she's related to the applesauces. And you are the current wardrobe, how do you like to be called? Wardrobe mistress?
I am a costume designer.
Costume designer. And your delightful associate, Malika Johnson, who when I first met her, when she first came to Cleveland with Terrence Spivey and her mom and her brother, she was just a mere fidget. Now she's all grown up, and she's one of your assistants. So now is it just the two of you and your daughter?
Raven.
Who?
Raven.
Raven, yes. Who are the costume department for this production?
Yeah, and then there's probably a couple other people that are going to help with some sewing and things.
Okay, now do you have for this production, another common thing is behind the scene changers. Do you have wardrobe assistants over? But Kathryn, you're called a costume designer, and our young friend who I was talking about a moment ago, Malika Johnson, who is the behind-the-scenes daughter of Terrence and her mom, and she's got a little brother, Cinque, who is kind of like another Will Smith Jr. kind of guy. But anyway, you have and your daughter Raven is helping behind the scenes. And let's talk a little bit about, first of all, how did you get involved in this particular production?
I've worked for the Caramoo on many productions in the past, and Terrence called and told me what they were going to do and asked if I wanted to get involved, and I specialize in period pieces. So I have a vast collection of vintage clothing business, and access to a lot of period costumes. So.
Now, as the costume designer, do you make some of your costumes from scratch? Do you shop at the thrift shops and then, take dresses and garments and then rework them for the particular production?
I specialize in redesign work, and I'm writing a book on it right now.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, how close to publication are you?
It's got a ways to go. It's got a lot of pictures to add, and I do a lot of redesign for theater, because the budgets aren't extensive in the arts anymore, so we do what we can to make it work, and it usually works really well. But I do build my own, and for this production we might have one scene where we do some building, but most of them are pulled from other theaters I work for.
Yes. Do you work for some of the other locals like Beck Ensemble, Playhouse?
Oh yeah, I work for Beck Center. I'm doing the children's theaters. My second year, all productions there. I work for Ohio Light Opera. I've been with them since 1994, and a lot of our costumes for this production, the older, from the teens and 20s, will be pulled out of Ohio Light Opera stock.
Yes.
And I also work at the University of Akron in the theater department, and some of our dance costumes will probably be pulled from the University of Akron.
Yes. And how many pieces will this particular production of Color Purple use in its production?
Haven't added them up yet, but there's going to be over 100.
And this is a cast of how many? 20?
42 cast, I believe.
Yes. Wow. So that's a huge production. And before I started to strangle, I think I was getting ready to ask you, for a production like this with these period costumes, do you have behind the scenes dressers? Are there quick costume changes where the actors go behind the curtain and strip, and then you have to zip them up real quickly?
Yeah, this one's going to have some quick changes. We're going to do some. We're going to have a couple dressers working, and some accessory changes and little things, because they're not going to be leaving the stage. So yeah. Now
let's talk a minute about some of the designs. I mean, because you brought an extensive number, and these are some very beautiful pieces. Now tell us about how you came up with the the actual dress? Is it designed from scratch? Is this one of the pieces that you shop at the thrift store and then redesigned completely?
That one is from Ohio Light Opera. It's a flapper dress from the 1920s.
And who wears this in
that
the
will
show?
be one of Shug Avery's day Shug Avery's day dresses.
And Shug is the friend of Celie, and she's also the performing artist, shall we say?
Singer.
Yeah, the singer. And I guess in these days we call her kind of a cabaret kind of gal. You know, but this is Shug.
She's going to have some glamorous clothes.
Oh yes, because she's the flamboyant one. And if I recall, she tries to get Celie to spruce up some. Is that correct? In terms of her image and wardrobe? That's what okay. So this is one gorgeous example of the work that you are bringing to the theater. Tell us about the one you're holding up.
Now, this is a reproduction of a period dress from circa 1930.
Here, let me help you so we can get a full length. Okay.
It's a good dance dress. That one will be in one of the dance scenes, probably the juke joint scene.
Yeah, what makes a good dance dress?
It's got a full skirt for movement.
For easy movement. And now, would these dance scenes be the ones that had the high kicking, almost like the jitterbug jive kind of dancing that was prevalent? Well, I knew it as the 20s, 30s, and 40s, those jitterbug type dances, And what color would you call this? It's a beautiful
color. It's kind of
a rust bronze type of color. And now, when it comes to costuming and stage lighting, this is very important when you create the color of your costume to go under the stage lighting and on the body of the actor. How do you do that coordination so that this color works well on whose outfit is this? Celie's or Shug's?
It doesn't have a name yet.
It doesn't have a name yet. But let's say you were considering it for Shug. Or no, let's say Celie. What would you look at in terms of stage lighting, Celie's complexion, and this dress to decide if this was appropriate for her?
Yeah, I look at skin tone and things to make sure the color's going to work well on them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people can't wear yellows or
And what about light? Do you work with the light bouncing off of the costumes?
I do have to double check with lighting because I've done productions where the lights have changed the colors of the costumes and made them blend in with the background.
Exactly.
And that's not a good thing. So.
And of course they like to do it almost last minute after you got all your costumes ready and that something doesn't work and you have to go back.
And that's really a piece of interesting information too, because your average theater goer sitting in the audience is never going to stop to think about the costumes and what might have gone into a specific character's costume in terms of what color can they wear and how is the lighting going to affect this, and also the movement. You mentioned that this would be an easy dress to be able to dance in. You have to take into consideration what the performer has to do in that costume, and will it allow for the necessary movement. Have you ever had to reject something that really looked good because the performer couldn't do the physical things that needed to be done?
Yeah, you got to make sure they're going to work for all of their movement and everything they're doing on stage, and not get in the way, not trip them. Things like that, and then quick change. A lot of times you have to set them up for quick change with Velcro or things to make them open quicker.
And that's what I was going to say. Something that most of the regular audience may or may not realize, the minute detail that goes into costuming, because this has a zipper. So what period this is in the stage production, zippers were invented and used in the clothing, because there are times when costumes only had buttons, or you had to figure out how to not let the audience see that this was a zipper ensemble back in 1712.
I use a lot of invisible zippers in costumes.
This is a fine example because you can't really tell.
Yeah, so from the audience you wouldn't be able to tell there was a zipper.
Now Malika, your assistant, is holding up another beautiful piece, and this is a Shug piece in the show?
Possibly.
Not sure yet. Okay.
It's a flapper, 1920s flapper.
And tell us what does flapper mean? In case the people are so young they don't remember what a flapper was in the 1920s.
They were kind of the wild girls of the 1920s that were more liberal, and they danced, they rolled their stockings down, knotted them at their knees, they had finger weaves in their hair.
And makeup was kind of heavy, if I recall correctly. Now, do you do any of the makeup also, or
no? I do not do
you just strictly costume design. So that, now tell me, excuse me, a piece like that, how many hours, energy hours do you have to, would you perhaps have to take to come up with that final creation? Is this something that it takes a month, weeks, 5 minutes? How do you, give me a
It depends on how much time I have to do it.
Okay.
I've had to come up with things in 5 minutes before.
5 minutes, okay. Now, are those hand sewn on or machine sewed on?
That's a ready-made dress, so
okay.
it was probably machine beaded.
Yes, so you didn't have to do that hand work by yourself. Okay, these are all, we're talking about being behind the scenes and showing our viewers aspects of theater that they might not otherwise become aware. And if they certainly are acting in a production, they need to respect all the folks who are involved in that production and what it takes for you to get your job done, just like what it takes for the director, for the musical director, the vocal director, that everybody plays an important part and everybody's piece is critical and crucial to the overall success of the play. So tell us, if you had any advice, before we close, if you had any advice to give to someone who is interested in getting involved in theater, behind the scenes, in something like costuming, wardrobing, what might you suggest as a good way to begin breaking in? Let's say if they like that department, what would be helpful?
Doing community theater, where you actually, get hands-on experience, is a good way to start.
Okay.
And of course, I've got an extensive education.
Yeah. In fashion and design? And,
yeah, fashion.
Yes. So you would recommend in general for folks to get some fashion, if they're really serious about it, get some fashion education under their belt?
Yeah, and then theater. I've got a degree in theater arts also. And I've just done a lot of worked my way up. My mom was a costume designer for local stuff when I was growing up.
Cool.
So I started really young, learned to sew it
just like our buddy over here. Well, I still can't think of the expression about you being born in a trunk, backstage. But, okay, so yeah, so the advice is get involved, get your hands, ask if you can apprentice or intern with the head costume designer or wardrobe mistress or person, whatever that particular production calls the person in charge of costumes. See if you can volunteer your services so that you learn how to do things and what goes in, because there's a whole lot with color, material, fabric, length, cut, sleeves, all those kind of
a lot of paperwork.
Yes,
knowing how to measure, take the right measurements,
and men's inseams. Oh,
tailoring. I'm a tailor, also
well.
Master seamstress. So
okay, well listen, I don't want to keep you any longer. Gary and I are so delighted that through Norma, our co-producer, we came to shoot this interview at Karamu while the production is in rehearsal. Wish you much success.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing all these costumes swirling around on the stage in a few weeks. Okay.
And we hope that you, when you go back over your family tree, you do find out that you are somehow related to the Musselman applesauce people, and you get your share of the pie, or the sauce, whatever.
Or whatever, yeah. Malika, thank you. And you're majoring in theater arts now, is that correct?
In arts.
In arts, okay. All right, well, thanks so much. We're moving on now. We're going to do another segment with, it'll be a surprise to us as to who comes out next. This is almost like, what is it? Let's make a deal. Where do people come out and surprise you? Old Johnny Carson? Whatever.
This Is Your Life? Something like that?
Maybe that was it? Okay. Now
that goes way back.
We're going to wait and see who comes out next. So don't you go away. We'll be right back. Thanks a lot, both of you.
thank you.